Ladies and gentlemen, can you please welcome somebody who's an independent media development and open data. Ladies and gentlemen, your facilitator is Yema Thompson. Please welcome Yema.
So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Warm welcome back to this forum. My panel this afternoon will talk about integrating open data and technology in the agricultural sector. As we all know, achieving food security through sustainable agriculture is one of the biggest challenges of our time, as enshrined in the Sustainable Development Goals. However, it is becoming clearer that data is critical to this process. It's what oil was to the last century. Isn't that not exciting? Yeah. A driver of growth and change. Given this overwhelming importance of data in planning and decision making, it is frightening, very frightening, to realize how vast the information vacuum is, especially in policy making with regards to what we know about food security, land ownership, land use patterns, and the smallholder farming sector in Sierra Leone. So what is open data? This is a new phenomenon for most of us. Open data is the idea that data should be used freely and should be made available for everyone to access, use and be published as they wish, published without restrictions from copyright, patents, or other mechanisms of control. Put another way, the vision of open data is for government information to be open by default.
Good morning, everyone. So he's going to bring up the website that I mentioned earlier today during the product discussion. This is not very specific to agriculture yet at this point, but before I show that website, one of the things that I'm interested in, or one of the main reasons why I'm here, is to see how can we use data to help farmers or everyone within the agricultural chain to make informed decisions. To do that, we need to collect data. We need to analyze that data. We need to visualize that data. And then we can clearly see things that we can do based on the visualizations and based on the data that we've collected. I don't see that today, and my hope is that at the end of this session, I will get questions from us, from you, the audience, about what can you do from a technology standpoint if we make data available to you, or what should we be doing to get ready for that data revolution, or to help you get data that you can help us make decisions with. So this slide is up. This is a platform that we created. And the goal of this platform is really to connect people to do business together. And who are the people we are talking about here? We are talking about investors, we are talking about entrepreneurs, and we are talking about small business owners. The idea for this came out of the research that was, some survey that was done by the World Bank a couple of years ago. And one of the outcomes of that was we need a way for people in the diaspora to connect with those in country so that they can learn about their interests, and the ones in the diaspora can also connect with people who have businesses here and want to expand those businesses probably to the point that they can export, and provide voluntary services or professional services, or come in with funding and help them grow their business. So the goal here is we wanted to use IT, or wanted to use technology to create these connections in a way that we haven't been doing it before. So let me go with a use case. Let's say I'm an entrepreneur, I'm in Sierra Leone, and I have a business. In my business today, I probably make 2 million or 3 million a year. I want to grow my business to the next level, and I'm looking for a professional who can come and maybe just help me with how to efficiently manage my business so that I can do more and make more money. I can go to this platform and register myself as an entrepreneur, put my business information, upload my picture, put my contact information, and leave it there. As soon as I do that, the platform is going to make an attempt in the back to match you with somebody who has interest in helping people with that type of problem. And when you find that person, you will be able to see again their picture, you'll be able to see their contact information, and you can start the connection right there. Most important is also for those of us who are in the diaspora who don't come home all the time, we don't have all the information we need. I want to register my business. I want to know about taxation. How does that work? We are collecting and aggregating all this type of information and putting that information in this portal as a resource that you can also come to and access that information in one spot. Today it's all over the place, but we're trying to make all that information available in one place. That's what this is about. I will encourage you to log in, create an account, use it to start your network here today, and you'll be able to find people that have attended here today that may be interested in something that you are doing, and it may be the beginning of your business. I'll stop there for now, but again, the question is, how can I help you from a technology standpoint to provide you a tool or an app on your phone that uses data to help you make some decisions. Those decisions could mean buying a product. Those decisions could mean where should I go farm. It could be anything. Whatever you think about, ask those questions, and I'll be happy to tell you from a technology standpoint if it's possible or not possible, and how we can collaborate to do something like that.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tamba. So Tamba, let you in a secret. Yesterday when I was emailing the panel, I told them that if they exceed the time, then they owe me a bottle of wine. So Tamba, you did 4 minutes. Thank you. So next is Mr. Mohamed Kamara. Tell us what you're doing in statistics.
Mine is in the form of a presentation. Madam Facilitator, please permit me to stand. How open data has empowered agriculture. My presentation is different because not all of us here are statisticians. And as statisticians, we want to know what's data and the relevance of this data to agriculture and to the general data users. My presentation outlined 1, introduction, 2, definition of open data, 3, significance of open data in agriculture. Move. Next slide. 1, it says statistics is a mirror of society. What does that mean? Reflecting not only an accurate picture of ourselves as we act in our households, but it tells us how we are and what changes we have made. So many presenters as of yesterday, they are presenting data and statistics, tells us where we are and where we have come from. Okay, it is the only statistics that tells us how the area under production, the livestock numbers, the market prices, which are critical to planning. Where else can policymakers get this information? We are all here for business, agribusiness. But before ever you go into business, you need to know the information concerning the area in which you want to invest. Let's say livestock. We want to know how many livestock farmers in Sierra Leone, how many farmers in Sierra Leone, how many households that are engaged in agriculture in Sierra Leone. When you come to Statistics Sierra Leone, we give you that information. You know straight away where to invest, the proportion of the population that are engaged in short sector. Our vision as producers, because in statistics we talk about demand and supply. The demand, those that need our data, the demand for data. Then the users, the supply side, we are providing this data to the data users, our policymakers. So what we are doing is We want to see statistics communicated in an easy and user-friendly manner, so that many people around the world, most of our farmers we target in agriculture, especially in Israel, are illiterate. So when we are disseminating statistics, it should be user-friendly, easy, so that when that farmer sees the statistics, the data, he will be able to interpret it easy. Then with the information revolution, the world is now a global village, so we can share information very quickly. Next slide. What is open data? That has already been defined. We all know what open data is. Next slide. Next slide, next slide. Sorry. Okay. What we are doing, large amount of data are collected and generated by Statistics and other national statistical institutions. The data that we generate in Statistics, we have good data. If we just generate this data, we don't disseminate this data to our policymakers, what will happen to our data? It will not be meaningful. So that's why with the dissemination of this data to stakeholders, it will empower the farmers, optimize agricultural practices, stimulate rural finance, facilitate the agricultural value chain, enforcing policies, and promoting government transparency and efficiency. Open data also, when disseminated through various IC channels, that's what we do in Statistics through journals. We have our journals, our newsletter, our bulletins, our website, our radio, TV, newspaper. If you go to our website, you have huge amount of data. The census data, the demographic and health survey data, the agricultural data, the production data, all these data that are available. You can either go to our website or our newspapers. What is open data? Open data is data. Disseminating reliable, comparable, and consistent data will encourage cooperation and collaboration to solve long-standing evolving problems. It provides informed-based decisions for businesses and policymakers. It provides better access to accurate, timely information for policymakers, farmers, and the private sector. It creates institutional awareness and provides support to the sector. You cannot just generate data. The data that you provide, is it quality? Is it relevant? Is it accessible? So it must meet the dimensions of quality, so that when that policymaker or that data user uses that data, he or she will be informed clearly. It creates institutional awareness. The next slide is also on significance of open data. Open data provides easy access to information, and this promotes innovation, which generates economic and social value from savings and efficiency in government. It enhances service delivery and feedbacks to create new wealth and generate jobs in the private sector. Open data improves accountability and transparency of the public sector. It enables data-driven evidence-based decision-making among state and non-state actors, our members of parliament, our policymakers, the civil society organization. All these people need information. So, it also provides useful information that can serve as early warning signs in agriculture. For example, we are working closely with the Ministry of Agriculture, the FAO, and WFP. We are providing technical support in those areas. So when the Ministry of Agriculture will visit these farmers, we provide early warning signs in case of places that are prone to drought, rainfall, inadequate rainfall, and all the rest. Okay. Small-scale farmers can also benefit from precision agriculture. And the past we used to have what? The chain and the rope, if I want to measure an acre of land. Now, for technological improvement, we no longer use the chain and the rope. What we use GPS. As I'm talking to you, we have any managers in the field now that are collecting agricultural data and measuring all those households that own land and have cultivated land. In the past, we used to estimate if you plant, let's say, rice, we take 25 kilograms of rice to plant 1 acre of land. But now we no longer use that. If I ask you, are you a farmer? Do you cultivate any crop? If you say yes, You have the plot. The numerator will just grab the GPS, so easy and accurate. Okay. Then it's also GPS factor that enables farmers to measure and respond to soil availability. Next slide. I will end up by saying, if you don't measure accurately, you will not be able to manage. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Now, please pencil down your thoughts on the type of data that you would like to see on the Statistics CLA website. There will be time for questions. Next is Agri-entrepreneurs. Let's give him a big hand.
I think I'll step two because it's a little bit hard to see the slides as I'm talking to you. Now, since I only have 9 minutes, I'm going to make it a bit short, but the concept I want to introduce to you today is data-driven agriculture. Because we're all talking about investments, investing in Sierra Leone, a country with such potential, but when you invest in something, generally you invest in something better than what was done usually, so that gives you the edge in terms of your investment. So therefore you invest in innovation, not investing in just doing more of the same. So this is about that. Data-driven agriculture is based on innovation, but the keys to innovation, in our opinion, is collaboration, technology, and data. This illustrates the point. Say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Since I don't have time for 1,000 words, I hope this makes it one. Thank you very much. So we're just going to do in the next 6.5 minutes that I have left a quick tour around the world to show you some of the innovations or smart ideas that people have had. So this, because it's going to be very quick, you don't have time to blink, because if you do, by the time you finish blinking, we're going to be in another country. So this is how, for those who may don't know who we are, GOLAN is a global movement, a global association, if you will, a partnership of more than 800 organizations across the world now. This is how we started a little more than 3 years ago, 2014. This is how we are today. So all of these are organizations that are committed to open data, that is to share data with each other and working together, possibly developing new partnerships with you and investing maybe something in what they do or a combination of what they do and what you do in a place like Sierra Leone where it could benefit. Now to facilitate this, of course, governments and many others are developing portals, like we just saw, the previous speaker. This is an old portal from Kenya. Their current portal is much nicer than this one now. But it allows for the free downloading of data in various number of formats in all kinds of areas where the private sector then picks up, messages the data, and develops applications of data used to everybody. Now this is but very few farms have all of the sensors all the way from the drones. And what we have sometimes is much more simple, but still uses open data. This is a simple example. It basically measures, the stick on the left measures the moisture on the ground, the one in the middle is a small solar panel, the one on the right does two things. It captures weather data and sends you the combination to your mobile phone. So if you have 2 or 3 of those on your farm, it can tell you that this part of your farm is very dry, but since it's going to rain tomorrow, you don't have anything to do about it. So it's a very simple example. Now they're trying to bring the cost of these things down. It's still a prototype, but the cost is now around $50. Nationwide, this is an example of the use of geodata. Data mostly from satellites, but also drones and other forms of sensors. Until 2009, in the US, people had to pay to download geodata pictures from the satellites from the Euro system. And as you could see, there wasn't very many. So then they thought they would charge $500 each. So they used to have about 50 downloads per week. Now they have 6,000 because they've opened it up. And that generated more than $1.7 billion of benefits annually in the USA alone, plus $400 million in neighboring countries, just to give you an example of the potential. But what is nice is when you can combine different sources of data together, and what these layers represent is historical data. Because when you combine this with historical data, then you can say that 3 years ago when conditions were in this situation, we had an infestation of this, or we had a drought, or we had a flood, or we had some other thing, and it helps you prepare, mitigate, and sometimes take advantage of what you can do. I was saying to somebody earlier that geodata is a bit massive, I would say, so it's not given to everybody to be able to manipulate all of this, but yet it can be used for many different things. This was for a water control project in South Africa. The objective was to It's in a satellite image. The objective was to reduce water consumption by 30% over 5 years. They reduced it over a year and a half. What you see, these different colors are different fields, and analyzing this, you can do these for other things, by the way. You can check the biomass, and you can do all kinds of other things. But then we found that some of these areas were receiving 4 times the amount of water that was required. In a few areas, not enough. So by rebalancing this, they achieved what I did. This is the kind of soil analysis that you can get even from drones, from satellites to some extent, but now also with the latest sensors, but even from drones also. So it saves a lot of time in terms of going and doing manual sampling, and it gives you a good idea as to what would grow in the best place and what wouldn't. So that's another advantage of technology. Leading to things like crop field forecasting. There's a lot of investment taking place in this nowadays from all kinds of companies. Insurance companies are getting very much into that because they do a lot of crop insurance, for instance. Others that provide inputs, seeds, fertilizers ahead of the crop time. They also want to manage their risk a little bit better. So developing this type of service and making it available, actually, many make a living out of this use of free open data to develop applications like this, which in turn benefit to a ton of people. Now this, I'll go fast, it's Morocco. Basically this graph represents that Morocco is a very dry place except for the north, but as the rest of the world, they see the temperatures going up, the amount of rain going down every year. And what makes it more complicated is that rain is becoming more unpredictable. Seasons are shifting. The example I used to give is somebody from Zimbabwe the other day was saying their sacred date was September 9, and somebody said it's my birthday. Well, that wasn't the real reason. The real reason is that traditionally it was the time when you plant. But because seasons are shifting, you need to have, that's where weather information is very important, so you can adjust to this time to plant, harvest, etc. And then you can also address other things. This is an example from Morocco where they found that they have a big problem water and a big erosion problem as well, because there's a lot of water coming, but it tends to come all at the same time and create a lot of erosion. So their solution in their case was to use no-till agriculture or cultivation agriculture. You can see the difference. This is the same field from the left and the right, using a different method based on data analysis. But to be able to do this, they needed machinery that wasn't easily available to do that, whether it is for bigger farms that you can see up, or smaller farms like the one, the light green one that you see down there. So that was another market that was developed there, the development and production of machines that helped. The end result for this example, this farm association, these are real figures, is that you can see that in these 2 crops, wheat and lentil, using the new farming method versus the old one, they managed to multiply by almost 5 their production levels. This, I'm just about done now. This is an example of another form of bringing big data to the hands of the farmers. And again, it's done through an intermediary, which in this case is the private sector. There's other companies. This one happens to be Bayer, but there's others that do applications similar to that. These two are against infestations. The one on the left is for weeds, the other one on the right is for insects. The way it goes is that these free applications, basically, they're totally automated. They use artificial intelligence. If I'm a farmer and then suddenly I see that there's this kind of strange insect that is starting to hurt my maize or whatever I'm planting that I've never seen before and nobody knows what it is, I can take a picture of this with this app, and instantly it sends this to the cloud, actually to big data. It compares this picture to millions of other records, and within seconds it comes back to me and tells me, well, this insect is this, what it does is that, and the way to get rid of it is this. So it's an example of big data, and in that case it's also an example of one financial model, because this company of course hopes that as getting gasoline to get rid of their insect, you're going to buy their product, but you don't have to. You can buy another one if you will. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. This is a simpler model that I like very much. As you can see, these are not really the latest phone technology, but they use one of the three key sources of data most used, most in demand for farmers and farmer innovation: geodata, weather data, and market data. It's supposed a model that started 5-6 years ago in Ghana, where they were providing free weather information to farmers. As you can see, this lady she grows pineapples. On the left side, there's the weather data she's receiving as an alert message. It says that basically it tells her that the rain is going to be like this week. Hold on your planting should be next week. And then on the right, there's market prices. So when it's time for her to sell pineapples, that's what she does. Instead of going to the traditional same market, then she can choose where she wants to go. And same thing when she buys inputs, she can buy them at a better price and therefore improve her profitability. They started with 5,000 farmers in one country. Now they have 350,000 farmers in 16 African countries that are using this. And it's a self-sustainable model where people are paying to be part of that. Now there are some places, now this is probably a bit more for the government, but maybe for others that could invest as well. In many countries, people speak many different languages. We all speak English right now, but at home maybe most of us speak a different language. So it's difficult to have universal applications, especially if you deal with people that are maybe less computer literate or less literate altogether. In Ethiopia, to address that, 2 years ago, they started a hotline where you don't need anything fancy. If you see that this bug infesting your fields or this other infestation, you can just call. And then you speak with this person, which gives you the open data in a verbal format, in a manner that will be easy for you to understand in your own language. In the first 3 months of opening this hotline, whose number is there, so it's a true one, it really exists. In the first 3 months, they got 500,000 calls. So it shows that there is a demand for data, there's a demand for knowledge, so there's a lot to be built on. So that's the presentation I have to do. Thank you.
I think Andre owes me about.
So I wanted to give 2 case studies of different types of farming and using open data. One is much more like an open access, small farming, small family. And the other one is more of an industrial farming, and I think both situations can bring examples back home to Sierra Leone that could be useful and interesting. So I think I was talking to someone yesterday about how we shouldn't think of things as problems, but we should think about them as opportunities. And I think with data, that's definitely something that we can start to do, where when we really understand the context and we engage with local people living there, and we use open data, you can really build solutions. So the examples I'm going to give are from a small island in the Caribbean, Dominica, and Bulgaria and Eastern Europe. So, to understand the context, as I just mentioned it, so Dominica is a small island in the Caribbean, and we worked in an indigenous community called the Kaninaga Territory, and it's a fertile area that grows tons of different types of crops, but they were dependent on banana cash crops from basically the 80s to the 2000s, and this was sort of how everyone made a living and what everyone could depend on. But when preferential trading ended, this meant that a lot of the farming also ended. And because it's a farm society, this had a lot of impacts on the rural communities living there. So the goal was for the community there was to return to farming, but also to use farming as a way to create local businesses. So one of the first problems that a lot of the farmers were encountering is the fact that because banana farming had ended, there was a lot of runoff. And so again, all of the maps I'm going to show you are all using open data and open software that we worked with in the community, and the communities actually developed themselves. And so basically just using a simple map to show where runoff potential was most likely in the Kalinago territory, and then to use this as a management plan for the Ministries of Agriculture and the Ministry of Kalinago Affairs to develop better agricultural policies. And working with stakeholders, we used an easy drone, like not even a fancy drone, just a normal drone that someone had in the community, and we were able to create a 3D image of the entire community that we then used in a lot of different meetings to talk about how we should deal with creating better agriculture policies. And one of the most important things is that farmers in the Kalinago territory don't actually have land titles because it's a communal land territory. So they don't have access to credit. So by using simple GPSs, farmers would walk the territory lines of their land, and then we then created a national platform where each map of GPS coordinates became sort of their access to credit or their sort of land title. So now that they can use this, go to a bank and show the fact that they do have land, and then use this to have access to more inputs and save time and it cuts costs. So in Bulgaria, it's a much different agricultural situation. There's over 2,000 grain farmers, and we work together with the National Grain Association, which has all these members joining them. And the main problem is that because of historic land access issues, Bulgaria used to be a Soviet country, so there's a lot of issues with land titles and who owns what, and sort of these very small plots of land that farmers are using. And there's very little communication between stakeholders, so the goal was to create a platform that allows communication from the National Grain Association with all its members. And then how we did this was each farmer creates a unique profile, and they upload information about their farm, where they're located, and all this information is easy to use and just swipe and add it into an app. And because now they have all these communities of farmers connected, you can actually do collective bargaining and collective price control. So the National Grain Association can manage the farmers and ensure that they have the best prices for seeds, fertilizers, and also when they sell their grain in the end, have the best price for that. And all this information, again, is linked to spatial data that is freely available. And because Bulgaria has a very strong beekeeping industry, and it's illegal to spray pesticides if you don't inform all the bees, beekeepers spray the bees. Now, when farmers are going to spray pesticides, they do this through the app, and then all the beekeepers in Bulgaria know that they should let their bees out for that day. So I think that for me, agribusiness is something that you have to consider lots of different aspects, because you have to consider the communities that are working there, the communities that rely on the agricultural resource, and the fact that we live in a really changing climate where you need information about the climate that you live in to have a successful crop. And I think that if we're going to create more sustainable and profitable agribusinesses, we have to think about those. So I also listed some free resources of data if anyone wanted them, and I think the most important, especially for agribusiness, to make it contextualized is really relying on farmers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I represent the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, which is housed at the UN Foundation. It was actually established to work with governments across a couple of countries, civil society, private sector, NGOs, and academia, all bringing them together to talk about the issues of data. Data that is very important for making decisions, smart decisions in policy development for countries and for various institutions. So our role is to help in each of these countries broker discussions, convene stakeholders together, address the issue of various gaps that are contributing to data deficits in these countries. And whenever the issue of data comes up, there are a couple of issues and challenges that also raise us in head, and some of these issues are well documented. Political issues, the political economy of data is a very key thing that if you want to deal with the issue of data, you need to take that into cognizance. One of the most key things that we have seen across several countries is the issue of coordination and collaboration. There are various institutions working and most often you find them not talking to each other. Sometimes different institutions are actually acting on the same challenge or the same issue, but they don't talk to each other. And we want to be able to see how we can convene stakeholders to begin to address those issues. When we started talking to several countries across the world, including Africa and here in Senegal and Sierra Leone, we discovered a number of data challenges that are not just peculiar to Sierra Leone, but these are some of the things that we have seen in Sierra Leone. We've seen that a lot of government institutions lack access, even sharing data across government institutions, maybe from the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry to the Ministry of Lands and what have you. It's pretty difficult. And the second thing we've seen also is that some places that are data available, but they're not in user-friendly formats. So it inhibits the type of innovations that you want to see with that data. We also have seen that data is being warehoused by some institutions, but that data is not available to the public, and not to many of you who are doing one research or the other. There are several challenges and gaps that we have seen, from data gap to access gap, to the issues of governance and to the issue of usability. Sometimes you have data available, but it's not usable because it's not of top quality, it's not real time. We have had several convenings in Sierra Leone, and some of those convenings have helped us, number one, to understand what are the various gaps that are contributing to data deficits in this country. The Right to Access Act information have been very supportive. In fact, that institution is the focal point for the GPSDD in Sierra Leone. And through them, we have several stakeholder engagements trying to look at climate relevant open data as they affect several institutions of government, from agriculture to energy to etc. And from that work alone, we saw that there was a huge data gap, particularly in the agricultural sector and also in the environment, because again, we're looking at climate change as it affects agriculture. And so what we have seen is that out of all of that discussions, we have been able to put together an issue document and process, the data roadmap process that is helping to guide, steering the national discourse around the issue of data. Secondly, also as GPSDD, what we do very well is to bring stakeholders together, private sector, government, helping to broker discussions, connecting them to resources within the continent and outside of the continent that can help them to address the issue of data. And so we have seen partnerships that are being formed within the country and approaches that are also being developed both at the national and sub-national level that can be used to address the issue of data challenges that we have in the country. And finally, we have seen also from across many of the institutions we've been speaking to, there's a huge capacity problem about using geospatial data. So what the GPSDD has done is that we have instituted an infrastructure called the Africa Regional Data Cube, which basically provides satellite imagery to 5 countries free of charge in Africa. Sierra Leone is involved. And there are a lot of institutions, about 30 institutions that have been identified. They've been pulled together. A couple of people were sent and funded by the GPSDD to a training in Kenya on how to access and use geospatial data for their operations. And I'll tell you a few of the use cases that we're currently trying to work on with a few of the stakeholders in Sierra Leone. The issue of NDVI, vegetation cover, was actually spoken about by the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry. They want to understand the vegetation cover across the country. A wonderful use case came out of our discussions in Senegal. Senegal basically has a huge pastoralist community in the country. They largely rear livestock, and it constitutes about 20 or 25% of the GDP for that country. And a certain institution of the government is mandated to generate NDVI data every 10 days, and they are unable to do that. But right now we're connecting them to the Africa Regional Data Cube to generate data. We're also trying to do that right now for Sierra Leone with the Ministry of Agriculture. And a case study came out recently where Yama herself helped to broker discussion with the Ministry of Fisheries and Marine Resources. Sierra Leone loses about $50 million as reported annually due to IOM fishing. Illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing. And so we are connecting the ministry right now to a huge database somewhere in the US, and also connecting them on a alert service that will help them to monitor fishery resources for the country. And this is what the Africa Regional Data Cube looks like. So it's a satellite imagery data that will cover about 15 to 17 years, and you can use vegetation issue for the country. Water extent, particularly relevant to agriculture, water extent and water quality. So as we're speaking right now, there's a competition ongoing, being supported by GODAN and the GPSDD, working with the RIC, Statistics Sierra Leone, Ministry of Agriculture and the EPA, where a lot of people are working together to actually bring about some applicable solutions that can help the agricultural sector. So GODAN is trying to deliver a solution that will help piggery and poultry farmers, while the GPSDD is working with the Ministry of Agriculture to look at a solution that will be used to collect data across the country on farming activities. And then the second solution is looking at something that will help provide information and data to farmers real time. So an instance is where IOM struck a particular region in Ghana, and you mentioned Isoko. So Isoko is a partner to GPSDD. We're currently working with them with 360,000 farmers in Ghana. We were gracious enough to have them in country yesterday, also trying to provide support to the Ministry of Agriculture here. So they will be building some solutions with the local developers here in country that will develop something that will help farmers respond to the issue of climate change when they have disasters, when they have armyworm or insect infestations across their farms.
Next, last but not least, is our own Des Peters. Thank you.
I mean, first of all, we're Cacao, the company's called Cacao Leone. We have a 236-acre farm based in Canada, which started roughly about 20 months ago. So it's still a starting phase. But what we try to do, which is completely different, which I've actually done a lot of research in Sierra Leone, and we're trying to do things differently, because I spent a bit of time, spent a year traveling around South America, Central America, just to see how farming is done. I've been to Cuba, and to see what they do differently, why they're successful. So we run an agroforestry farm, which essentially means that we have livestock, we have crops, and we have forestry. We integrate. So when we use cover crops as one of the techniques we do. We do no-till farming pretty much, because obviously when you till, you actually disturb the organic matter of the farm itself. We do things like we use principles and concepts of agroecology. So everything is 100% natural. So all our inputs or enablers come from the farm. I came here initially to set up a chocolate factory, and I thought, okay, I'll do it the other way, set up a chocolate factory, then do farming. But when I saw, I was amazed when I saw the way they were actually processing cacao. In the streets, you see them drying cacao in the streets, and I was appalled. And I said, there's no way in terms of quality, because also I make chocolates as well. I mean, it was one of the things I do, I make chocolates. And there is absolutely no way I could actually take this back to Europe, or to France, or to Switzerland, anywhere, where you have a group of people who are pretty much knowledgeable about chocolates. Because first of all, there is, when you have wine tasting, you also have chocolate tasting. So the quality of your chocolate or your cacao is essential. The process of how you do it is also essential. So in terms of the farming we do, we aim to address all of those issues. And in terms of the technology innovation, which is important, which is Andre's presentation, we talk about geodata, precision farming. That's also vital. Because I mean, if you want to farm in the 21st century, you cannot do it basically without being semi-mechanized. The World Bank, FAO, have done a lot of research based on agroecology, agroforestry, but in terms of implementing the practices, non-existent so far within Sierra Leone. People use urea, obviously for reasons which I know, in terms of wanting to have their plants grow fast. But what does urea do? What does it do to the plants, to the soil itself? Gives it compaction. So that means that water retention on the soil becomes a little bit more difficult. So what happens in the end, that soil itself becomes unproductive. That is not sustainable. We are in Africa, in Sierra Leone, where we have a lot of land,
unused land. And I think it's a shame that we are not going back to the natural ways itself. Pest control. How best do you deal with pest control? By the techniques that you use, the no-till, cover crops, rotation, irrigation. I don't think you need any external sources in terms of trying to actually grow any other crops. If you actually imagine the percentage you would use when you plant using pesticides, that cost alone, I don't think it's actually necessary. However, in terms of doing the kind of agriculture I'm doing, you have to prepare. So you have to plant. I mean, for example, erosion control, there are plants like vetiver. You want nitrogen plants, there are things like Rosidia, Scipion. If you want to suppress your weed, you have essentially, if you have plant pineapple, for example, you plant cowpeas, you plant other things like okra, and you diversify. Monocropping itself is something which, when you do research on monocropping, you find that it doesn't work. You grow corn alone, you have a lot more pests. It's susceptible to pests. So essentially, what we do in Cacao Alegre, we use, like for example, growing cacao, what do we use as cover shade? We use economical trees, we use plantain, we use bananas, but not only that, we also use ground covers as well. We use peas, we use peppers, we use because that is, I mean, when you go to Cuba, Cuba had an embargo, and they wouldn't allow any external inputs. So what did they have to do? They had to survive, they had to go back to the past. They had to literally do a lot of research, they had to improve on the extension services, and essentially what they have right now is a huge successful organic agriculture. You go to Brazil, they're doing the same thing. So, Indonesia, same thing. A lot of places in South America are doing the same thing. So, unfortunately, I have to conclude. So, my message, pretty much, I suppose, about what the family would do in terms of cacao and other crops is ensure that we do it naturally. And I think it works. And our farm is there for people to come and see what we're able to do with just using natural techniques. Thank you.
We'll take 5 comments or questions from the floor.
Yes, interesting the submissions on the open data were interesting, but unfortunately, and I knew that they would have got the need to have a local template of how those open data have been used in Sierra Leone. I will have offered myself to do a presentation on what we have done as under the International Fund for Agricultural Development when I was the M&E officer before I was national president to serve in the government. And I have my co-partner, Mr. Abubakar Bangora. He's a geospecialist, and he's presently the M&E officer who has taken over. We have this open data kit, and the owner to do our monitoring and evaluation for all the impact of the project in Sierra Leone. And we use this on 4 platforms. One, we use it on the inland valley swamps, inventory, rehabilitation, and conservation. We use the social ODK to collect general survey data for information. We also use the geo-ODK, using geospatial data collection and live imagery to inform on the rehabilitation of IVS, so have live pictures of the rehabilitation. Initially, we had problem with our service providers providing us with information of the extent of rehabilitation, the hectares of rehabilitation. We had problem with it for payment. So when we introduced this aspect of open data, we're able to cut down on the anomalies from our service provider. And at the office, we're able to tell clearly the number of hectares the service providers have rehabilitated just at the click of a button. We also use it to look at our beneficiaries. If we have rehabilitated the IVS, for example, we have 10 hectares and we have 10 farmers there, we're able to tell how many hectares is under cultivation at a particular point in time at the point of reporting. So in my office, I don't need to go to the field. The project manager don't need to go to the field. Even if I room, they have live pictures from our website because we align it to the website and they are informed of what is happening. We also use it for beneficiary mapping. You know that we are dealing with about 100,000 farmers in this country. And we want to identify, because what we have seen over the period was that different organizations are providing support for the same farmer. You have 5, 6 different organizations providing support for the same farmer, and it's like, it's not working, it's not doing the right justice to this country. So we need a beneficiary mapping. So now we can identify our farmers, even for the next 50 years, we can tell you that we were able to support this farmer and this community, and this is the farm of the farmer. The last thing that we were about to work on before I left, when I was called upon by the president, was what Ilio presented the last, that is the e-commerce. We use the eBay fashion to design the e-Luma. The word Luma is a local name for the periodic market in this country. So we want to design the e-Luma. We already have the concept, and yesterday I discovered it with Tabanamin. Tabanamin is my scout friend. We grew up together since childhood days. So this was something that we have been working on since we were small. The e-Luma is an integrated system where we have all the stakeholders in agriculture, you know, in one point, you know, discussing over the cloud system. We'll provide the daily market prices at different markets across the country. So if I'm a consumer, I want to send my younger sister to buy me cassava in Lombe, at the click of a button, I will know the price of cassava in Lombe. Yeah. And so this information will be provided by the Ministry of Agriculture. We also have statistics working in it. And we're also working with 52 ABCs across the country. And these ABCs might have different crop that different product they want to sell. So we are working with them to see if you have 50 bushel of Nerica L19 and L20, we'll have all the information of that, we feed it into the system. And we'll send SMS to all agro dealers or who are interested across the country. Then if you are interested, we don't do direct business with that ABC. We are working on that with the Illuma. Even though I've left this product, we still have people that are doing it, and I've asked Lamin to see how we can partner and expand on this, and maybe we can introduce a first locally geospatial system in Serbia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Des Peters. I just want to buttress what you just said about using traditional farming methods. I would be delighted if you would do something more to enlighten our small state farmers, to let them go back to our old systems, that not every time they have to just go for the easier method of just spraying the fertilizer or just spraying the pesticides. It affects my groups a lot when they come to London. So please, if you would find time to make a special program on TV or on YouTube or somewhere which we can share to our farmers when we go, so that they remember that they have to go back to the old farming methods of preventing pesticides and things like that. I thank you very, very much. It's a very, very good point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have 2 more questions.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Cyril Fortune. I just want to highlight what Des Peters was actually making a point on. I think, if we get some people who understand the concept of permaculture, the concept of crop rotation, we will be in a position to even take on the market that is the trend now, these organic products. Because basically with this permaculture thing, I think what needs to be done there, since you are on the ground doing some things like that, you should start really enlightening some of our local farmers. Not that they don't really know, but they just don't know how to do the arrangements. Because certain crops like neem tree can really tap minerals or nutrients from the soil at a deeper level. Certain crops like moringa can actually add, nutrients to the soil. Certain crops like PGP can actually add nutrients to the soil. So we have to teach them how to incorporate these things into their farming practices, and then that way we can actually get a better land. Because no matter how we think there's land, there's going to be a problem for land in Sierra Leone. There's going to be a problem very soon. with the climate change and other adverse effects, if we don't find a way to mitigate them, it's going to be a problem. So let us guard ourselves ahead of time. We are not good at solving problems, so let's don't wait till the problem comes. So that's my own advice.
Good afternoon all. My name is IOM. I'm here to represent EZ Farming. Here with regard to price control, I'm actually particular about price control because I quite remember when after the 100 days of President Leone, there was increase of prices in local commodities, local pepper, rice, things that are being produced here in Sierra Leone. And things that were sold, let me say 5,000 leones or 3,000 leones, as soon as there is a skyrocketing of dollar, the price will increase. So this technology can be used to try to monitor the price control. But because if you have 5,000 leones, pepper or okra, or things that are locally produced here, nobody should have the right to just increase price at just random rate. So providing it.
So I'm going to take the revenue question first, and it's just natural. I'm a businessman, so from a data point of view, there are two basic models, right? So there is one person who is usually called the data publisher, someone who actually creates the data and publishes that data. They have several different models to charge or to make money on that data. Let's say, for example, governments in the West. I will take a typical example, the UK. If you are in the UK and you want to ship something with UPS or any of the postal services, usually when you put your address in their system, they will look up your address and validate to make sure that your address is correct. In the background, what's actually happening is that website is making a call, is making a request back to the UK data system that has the addresses of every individual in the country, and then retrieving that information and bringing it back to you and confirming to the system that this is correct. Every time they make that call, they pay something to the UK government for making that call to verify. So that's one use case where government makes money out of open data. I could be a private company and I can go out and work with different agencies, organizations to aggregate their data, put that data into a platform, maintain that platform, and open that platform up in a way that other small entrepreneurs can connect to that platform to use the data. My platform will become the intermediary or the broker to give access to that data, and I can charge people to use my platform to get that data, and that's one way I can make money as a business out of open data. So there are several different ways, but that's it. Shortest answer I will have.
I just want to respond to my sister here in relation to price control. I am not in the Ministry of Agriculture, but we are also collecting data on market prices, on what we call the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. And our institution has no control over the increase or decrease in the prices of commodities. What we do is just to inform the policy makers on the increase of a particular product and the rate of inflation in the country. That is why at the end of every month, we try to compare certain products because we have about 400 products in our basket, wherein we collect the prices of goods on a daily basis. So we try to compare the price of certain commodity last month compared to the price of commodity this week. So if there is any increase in price, we try to calculate the inflation rates so that policymakers will know the kind of policies that we implement. Thank you.
As for me, I'd just like to go back to the point of sustainability for investment, because too many times people, when they think of open data or data, they think it's not really for me. You know, I'm in the farming business. I'm not really a number guy. So how, you know, so GoDan is about getting the expertise where it is. So that takes care of that one. But coming back really to where to invest, There's many different areas. First, there's a ton, and I mean millions of data sets available free of charge nowadays across the world. I just quote one as an example. INRA, the National Research Institute from France, they claim to have the largest repertory of plant diseases in the world. So any possible disease of any possible plant that grows on this planet, they have photographed, analyzed, cataloged, diagnosed, and determine which treatment is best. That's there, that's available. Nobody's been doing much with it yet, but that could be one opportunity. An example, not related to agriculture, but in London they had a problem in terms of people using metro and other public transport services in a way that was not very efficient, overloading some stations while some others were not really. So they invested in releasing all the data they had pertaining to transport. As a result, the transport self-regulated. People knew, I know where my bus is right now, for instance. So if I missed it, I may choose to take the metro instead. So this regulating effect it had as a benefit to London, the City of London, was a return on the investment of 70 to 1, 70 times what they had to invest in terms of releasing the data. So one, there's data that's available out there that can be used to be transformed into a product that then is available. Then there's forms of data that one can generate yourself that you can also transform, and there's a wealth of different models. The Bayer model was one that I mentioned earlier. There's other one, everybody can think of Google Earth, which gives free of charge a certain level of data, but then if you want more analysis or higher definition, then you need to pay. So there's different models. A so-called model, you pay a very small, almost symbolic contribution every year to get access to this, but because they have such a wide pool of people, it makes it very sustainable, etc. So-called farmers, they generate between 15 and 30% more income per year thanks to data. So that's the kind of return on your investment that you can choose to have, whether it is in using data that exists already, in generating data that is needed by the people and selling part of it, or in working in partnership with somebody who's already doing that, but not in Sierra Leone yet.
Well, being a farmer, data for me is pretty important, because in terms of finding out, having a drone, for example, just having a drone put in the phone, you could actually have the drone go around the farm, and you can see areas which needs to be worked on, areas which need to be cleared. It gives you different things. You can look at so many things in terms of the farm, and it depends on the size of the farm. I mean, having 236 acres walking around that farm could be, well, it could be a daunting task. But with having a drone, that helps. Having precision farming as well, it's for me, it's an added value. It's not something that you think, okay, I could do it or leave it. For me, it's an essential aspect of farming itself. If you want farming in the 21st century, data is important. You need to know what you're doing, you need to plan. In order to plan, you need information. If you do not have the information, you cannot plan. So that, for me, data is essential. And so I'm actually happy to see to the guys who actually deal with data, pretty much. Thank you.
I think all of you have summed up the importance of data and business really well, especially in agribusiness. Yema asked me a really interesting, I think, question yesterday about the importance of having private businesses in promoting food security and sustainable development goals, and I think it's clear that with agribusinesses, it really promotes all those kind of aspects of supporting women, supporting agriculture, supporting local communities. And I think yesterday it was even more clear when we heard from from the Agri-entrepreneurs that all of these people focused on creating a better community for where they live. And I think that one of the best parts of being in agribusiness is there's a real impact that goes beyond the farm, but to the local communities as well. And so in investment, I think it makes the most sense to work with agribusiness.
I'll quickly respond to the issue of the business model. From the previous work I've done, there are about 3 models that you'll find, especially when it comes to data and also for service delivery, particularly in the social space. So one, there's the free model where users of that data, i.e. farmers, government institutions, are not paying for that data because somebody is paying at the back end for that data. which could be government or a donor agency or whatever. But it's available, it's free to all manners of users. And then there's a second model that deals with, it's a freemium approach, which is what Isoko is also doing. Freemium is just sits between free and premium. So you get a lot of data free, but you pay for certain components of the data, which particularly covers the cost of production of that data. So the institutions that are providing that data, they are saying they are not making profit. It's just to address the cost for producing that data. And the third model is where it's premium. So the farmers that are getting information are paying for every bit of that data that they are using. So you could, depending on what circumstances or situations you find yourself, we could have discussions around what it should be the sustainable business model that can be embedded into the discussions around data, particularly for farmers and other folks around here. My brother from IFAD, I'm really shocked that I'm hearing from Iloma, and I'm not sure that we are talking to some of the partners, because we've had several conversations with the Ministry of Agriculture, and we've never heard about that. So I think that we need to have a lot more conversation to bring all of these things together. It's for the good of the country, rather than if we work separately. And then finally, on the issue of price control, it's a valid point. One of the things that ISOCO has done very well is generating price information on a daily basis across 50 markets in the country, on 52 agricultural commodities. They collect that prices daily and they supply it to farmers. It's helping to improve profitability for farmers, particularly when you come to buy the farm kit. And then the various agencies of government are using for price policy and intervention, basically when price just skyrockets. So I think it's time we need something also like that. And I know the Ministry of Agriculture, through their APIS platform, is hoping to do something in that regard, where they could collect, and they are currently collecting on a fortnight basis prices of various agricultural commodities in the country. And I think when all of that is brought together, that would help to address the issue of price fluctuations